Ops headquarters today, talking with Andy Siri, the Wookiee, the man, the myth, the legend, about our Shemaghs that are coming from Afghanistan. Just briefly, Andy, can you tell us about the factories that make these things and how long you've been working with them?
We've been doing this with these guys, I don't know, close to 10 years. I'm not exactly sure if it's 8 or 9 or 10, but it's quite some time. These are coming out of one specific factory in Kabul. They've gone through a huge development process over the years, but the Shemaghs themselves are all loomed in Kabul we get our yarn out of Pakistan, but they're 100% cotton. They're loomed in Kabul, made by both men and women. Bunch of handwork on them as well, but some pretty intense machinery to actually do the work. It's not, technologically crazy, but big giant contraptions whacking away, weaving fabric. I think a lot of people that do this stuff are working out of Asia and Pakistan. From a pattern standpoint, you can tell ours are our own pattern that's been developed by our factory guy. Yeah. And we've just been we've been dialing them in for years. They used to be a cotton poly blend. Now they're 100% cotton. It's a really nice ring spun cotton, and playing around with different colors and so forth.
Right on. So the Shemaghs that are coming in for December 22, yeah. When were they manufactured?
Yeah, these Shemaghs were supposed to be Christmas 2021 inventory. Normal turn on these is 2 to 3 months. We got going on this shipment in May, June 2021. They were getting wrapped up in July, starting to move into packaging, and July 2021, we let Bagram go. And most folks probably don't realize this, but as far as logistics out of Afghanistan are concerned, pre-Taliban, any air shipments were going through Bagram Air Force Base. It was the secure location to get any sort of freight out of the country. Most other air shipments come out of that we, at our scale anyway, are brokered onto commercial air flights. Yeah. So if you were to ship something from Paris to here, and you had 2 pallets, that's probably sitting on a Delta flight and you don't realize it, but they're filling space on planes. None of our shipments ever came out through Kabul airport. So,
which is weird. For the people who don't understand, Kabul is where everybody saw all the tragedy that went down last August. That's the airport, but Bagram is about 60 miles to the north. Yeah, but it's about a 45-minute to an hour drive. But that's where the military airbase was, which is weird because you're saying these things are getting brokered on commercial flights, but I don't remember seeing Delta or Emirates or anybody else land in Bagram. So it's just interesting how the logistics work.
Yeah, and to clarify that, they were the first leg of the air shipment normally pre-Taliban was on cargo planes coming out of Bagram, and then they'd land them all over the place, whether it be, Dubai, somewhere in Europe, somewhere in Turkey, and then they'd move on to a commercial flight and then they'd come here. So it's when people say, they're coming UPS freight, like UPS is brokering the freight. They're not flying on brown planes.
Yeah. They're just finding empty holes in cargo and filling it.
Exactly. So our normal supply chain was set up in a way that, our stuff would fly through Bagram and then it'd go down the chain and it'd get here, and it'd take 2 or 3 weeks, which was normal, and that was all fine. And it was a pain in the ass, and it was what it was, but it worked, and it was predictably a pain in the ass. We got about 2/3 of the way through this shipment. Bagram goes down. I'm working with UPS to set the shipment up, and they got a little bit cagey with their communication and whatnot, and the folks in country, they went dark for a minute. They came back up, said, yeah, we had a booked movement. And at this time, I didn't necessarily realize that the issues were directly associated with Bagram going away. They were just talking about capacity and saying all the normal stuff, and it's fine. It's Afghanistan. It's chaos. So we finally actually finished the production run. That was late July. UPS was talking to us about actually moving a shipment. I had 4 appointments for pickup in the first 10 days of August 2021. scheduled, and they just weren't showing up at the factory.
That's because the country was descending into chaos.
Basically,
That's that time
that's when the Taliban was constricting on Kabul. Yeah,
everybody was running through the surrounding territories heading toward the inevitable end.
Exactly. And they were then, and to the, you know, the folks on the ground, to their credit, they were trying. Like, they wanted to make the movement and they were trying to do it. But whether it was, you know, it could have been something as simple as the guys that drive the trucks that skip town. Like, we don't know. We don't know. I mean,
it could have been the fact that the airport was just surrounded by tens of thousands of people trying to run for their lives.
Eventually, that's where it came. But like early August, you know, our factory owner was like, yeah, like he was actually incredibly positive. He was like, yeah, that's, you know, that stuff out in the sticks. Basically, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. But like, people weren't showing up to pick up the shipment. The last scheduled pickup was, I believe, August 12th. No show. And then things descended really quickly over the next 48 hours. And you've got everything that we saw and people hanging off airplanes and all that.
Yeah.
So that being said, we had 4,500 Shemaghs sitting in a factory in the middle of a country that was being taken over by the Taliban.
Yeah. So the obviously the shipment can't move.
No.
All right. So it's sat in Kabul for the last 18 months.
Correct.
And then, you know, what's kind of been going on with the factory over there since, you know, in that meantime, in that period?
Yeah, they've been doing what they can. They actually had a fair amount of textiles and through some organizational work. If you want to talk about it, you have more detail on all that. But they basically made anything they could and primarily focused on winter clothing, because this all went down in August, and Kabul is effectively Denver. Like, it's cold there.
It's cold as hell there.
It's super cold. Yeah. It's snow. It's at 6,000 feet. It's legit winter. The foothills of the Himalayas. Like, it's not someplace you want to be without a jacket in the wintertime. Massive inflation. Everybody stops working. The cost of everything doubled or tripled. Yeah. It was bonkers, and our factory owners started bringing people in to use the material they had to make what they could,
yeah.
And then literally was driving around Kabul handing this stuff out to kids. Like, we were jokingly calling him Kabul Claws.
Yeah, Kabul Claws.
Which is probably highly inappropriate because they're Muslim, and sorry for that, but like, that's what he was doing. Like, to put it into context, it was...
And seeing
really wonderful what the guy did.
Yeah, and I remember like getting the first images of him saying, "Hey, I'm going to make these cold weather jackets." I go, "Man, that looks like a nice jacket. Probably something that I would have bought at some department store around here to give to my kid."
Yeah, they were kind of like puffies.
Puffies.
Yeah, they were nice little jackets.
You know, and then Save Our Allies, they came through with a donation. They really stepped up, and they gave us the cash, and we got it to them. And then next thing you know, you see everybody behind the machines again doing their work, and all of a sudden, boom, they got jackets. And then 3 days later, you see images on the side of the road of these kids, throwing on puffies.
Yeah,
which was rad, because again, any soldier who's been there has seen kids freezing on the street in the middle of winter and wants to do everything they can to help.
And what was really interesting about that too is that as we were talking to the factory owner and understanding that we could raise a little money just to help, like, these guys had to buy food, they had to, they're going into winter themselves, they're trying to take care of their families, and their jobs just went away. Keeping in mind that most of these guys live 20 to 50 miles from the factory, they'd come in and work for 4 or 5 days, they'd live in the factory, and there's, basically barracks there, there's a kitchen there, there's a cook, and then they go home. It's a lot of work for them to get there to go to work. And we just point blank asked them, like, we've got some cash that we can help support you guys for a minute. Do your people want to work for that money, or do they just want to stay home and bunker out? And every one of them came back and said, no, they want to keep their life rhythm. They want to keep working. They want to do something. Yeah. And they were given the opportunity to basically take a handout for no work and chose to come into work.
And the volume of checkpoints and instability and everything else during that whole process, it definitely was pretty dicey, fall of last year. But over the beginning of the year, things kind of settle out, after revolution, and then people need to start working again. They need to start feeding their families, and they were doing it. They were going after the UN contracts, all the humanitarian contracts. I don't believe they got any of them.
No.
But then, leading to October of this year?
Yeah. So we just kind of wrote it out through August, August through the winter, basically into early 2022. And we're mostly focused on being able to support them any way we could, just knowing there were no shipping lanes open.
Yeah.
And February, March, I started just hitting my brokers every like 2 to 4 weeks. Like, hey, I got this movement I want to do, you know. Yeah, we're not doing anything in Afghanistan. We're not doing anything in Afghanistan. Like, nope. And then through the summer, it was basically monthly. In September, same thing, talking to my brokers. And in October, I just randomly jumped on the UPS Supply Chain Solution website. And rather than talking to my dude, just, I'm going to ship some stuff from Afghanistan. I got this many boxes and they weigh this much and they're going from here to there. And a day later, I got a quote. It's like, holy shit.
So you just randomly hopped on the UPS website and just entered the form, and their system worked.
And I don't think it would have worked any different earlier on. I mean, their systems are what they are, but the capacity, the shipping lanes, the infrastructure in the country, all that stuff, obviously opened back up. And it was interesting because the brokers that UPS was working with were some of the same people. You know, I recognized some email addresses from 8 years of doing this stuff and, kind of talking to the same people a little bit. But it happened. So, okay, now we're like, wow, we can move these things. Hey guys, we're going to take half of what we've got over there. Let's test this and get it going. And then we ran into the shenanigans of dealing with a country that has basically gone through a complete transformation.
Yeah, so then that's something that you and I had kind of previously discussed about this, is that when we have the line of amateurs talk tactics, amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics.
Right.
And running a nation, you have to be really good logisticians. Considering that Afghan is a heavily import-dependent country, but they do have critical exports that they send out of the nation, which drives the majority of their GDP as an agrarian society. And then, like, they can make the stuff, but now can they get it out and get it to market, which is the main concern. And, over the course of a year, as things move in Afghanistan, it moved somewhat slowly.
I think it's the simplest way that I can put this, what we ran into is the big picture perspective I have on this is that it's really easy to cause problems or be a big thorn in the side in something. So for decades, the Taliban's running around causing problems, feeling like they're affecting things and controlling things. And there's a functioning country, whether it was functioning well or not, that debatable, whatever, but it was predictable and it was working. Mm-hmm. And we got guys running around doing their thing and causing their instability and doing all that stuff. And August last year, like, they won, right? Like, they got it. We bailed, the whole thing happened. But now you got a country to deal with. You're not running around fucking up the guy's day that's running the power system. You're the guy with the power system now. You're the guy that's got to figure out the export customs stuff. You're the guy that's got to regulate the airports. You're the guy that's got to figure out all these things that you could spend, metaphorically an hour a day to break, but it takes 30 hours a day to make it work. And now they're in that seat and we're trying to move a shipment, and they've obviously got things set up enough for it to work. But what we learned is there's basically 3 different systems that need to talk to each other for export customs to work in Afghanistan. And one of them is tied to, the businesses being legitimate businesses and licensed and all that stuff, which our guy is and always has been, and updated all his stuff through all the turmoil. And effectively what we had was 3, almost 4 weeks of messages from people saying there's a problem to solve. And it was like 3 people all pointing at each other saying, solve the problem. And me for 3 weeks saying, what's the goddamn problem? Like, what is the actual problem? Paperwork, licensing, this, that, and the other thing. And we had our factory owner with all the necessary paperwork, all the necessary documentation, all the receipts for paying for everything. Like, he had his paper trail in hand, going between these 3 agencies saying there should be no problem here. Here's everything you need.
But it was just a 1 and a 0 or a comma or a semicolon and some code somewhere.
The systems weren't talking, and they're all pointing at their computer screens saying it's red, it's not green, I can't do anything. Like, I get it, I see it, I can't do anything. And as we dig deeper into it, more conversations, little things that you just hear from doing stuff and working with organizations and running things that involve humans is there was massive turnover. So over the last year, most of those jobs, like 60, 70, 80% of the people in those seats weren't there before. So again, a functioning system, it's all got to be relearned. Is it, computers are computers, is it tech stuff? Is it working? Is there updates? Is there bugs? Like all that crap. Finally found some people that could actually figure out how to walk the thing through, did it. And once it was actually through that point, then we were just in the normal waiting game of logistics, like waiting for the space on the first flight, got it out of Kabul, it was 3 flights to get here. And, they should be, although the U.S. computer systems haven't verified it, but they are, I believe that they are on U.S. soil and they're clearing customs now and all that.
Yeah, so the route was Kabul to Dubai, which is the standard route that most people take in.
Yeah.
And then Dubai to Paris, and then Paris to Atlanta, which is...
It's actually a really clean lane.
Yeah, it was fast. Lane. I think it's the fastest we've ever...
Once it moved very quickly.
Yeah.
Once in Kabul at the airport, secured through the export process. It took a pretty long time to actually get on the first flight, but there was some holidays in Dubai and some other stuff. And when you're moving these sorts of things, you don't want to set up a flight plan that's going to move it 2/3 of the way and then sit in storage somewhere along the way. They'll hold it at origin until they know they can push it all the way down the line.
Yeah. So, I mean, now that we've proven the route is open, we're moving the old product, philosophically, do you think that people are going to keep supporting Afghans anymore in our factories? Or are they going to just say, they're a business under Taliban rule, they're not worth supporting anymore?
I mean, that's up to them. It's, there's a couple of different analogies there. When you think about, we'll use China as one example, and, Taliban controlled Afghanistan is another.
Yeah.
Generally, companies in China are actually partially owned by the government. Like the government takes an actual equity position in the company. So when you buy something from a Chinese, manufacturer, nothing against the people that make this stuff. China makes great stuff. I love my phone. It's a great piece of hardware. It's epic. But portion of that actual profit is going as an equity position to the actual government.
To the CCP.
Yeah. And that's there. And that is different than, people could say, well, the U.S. government owns some of your business because you pay taxes. Not really. It's different. And in Afghanistan, that's not the case. Like they, of course, the Taliban is charging businesses taxes and so forth. And yeah, if we continue forward with our manufacturer, some of the revenue that we pay him is going to go to his standing government. My position personally on that is we've been supporting these people for, 10 years, and they've been doing really good work and making products that people love of the highest quality for these that we can find on the market.
Yeah.
And by no fault of those people, they have a government in place that we may or may not like.
Yeah, it sounds kind of oddly familiar.
Yeah, but the impact of at the volume that we are and so forth, I can completely understand how somebody would idealistically say, I don't want to do anything that's going to support in any way, shape, or form a penny of my dollars ending up in the hands of the Taliban. Totally get it.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But again, the Taliban isn't being the Taliban and being funded and being operational and actually getting anything done off the pennies per Shemagh that they're charging our factory owner.
Yeah.
And the impact of those, 40 people that work in that factory and their, 200 some people when you bring in their whole family into the equation, personally, I think is far more important than the other side.
Yeah. It's always tough because, we get that we've gotten it for years. Well, why are we going to support those people?
Right.
Well, I mean, do you not like them because they're Afghans? Do you not like them because they're Muslim? Do you not like it's what type of device are you tapping this message to me on social media? Yeah, it's a Chinese made phone. You're giving money to the Chinese Communist Party. Is one better than the other? And I would say no, neither of them are really good.
Yeah.
But, you have to think about the families that you're feeding by putting their family members to work and creating a product and keeping them employed, because from our standpoint, from the business not bullet standpoint, people that don't have jobs typically do dumb and violent shit to feed their families.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to avoid.
And personally, and even from a business standpoint, like, I don't think we're here to argue with people. I'm not here to change anybody's mind. You know, I certainly haven't put 10 years of my life into trying to accomplish the things that we've accomplished in doing so for some, you know, trying to get millions of people to think like me. We just believe that we're doing a good thing. The work backs it up. The outcome is the outcome. And if somebody doesn't agree with us and they choose not to spend their money with our company, that's completely okay.
Yeah.
That's just fine. Like, it's fine. I have far larger problems in my life, and we have far larger problems as a business than trying to go out and just, you know, convince people on some idealistic level to agree with what we believe.
Yeah.
You know, if folks want to buy it, they're going to buy it.
I'm always trying to change people's minds, make them more open, and be able to see the bigger picture. You know, are they going to buy an Afghan-made Shemagh made by people who are, you know, trying to do well? Or they're going to buy a Pakistan-made Shemagh? Well, we all know what Pakistan did, and they're going to buy a Chinese-made Shemagh.
But if they've hit our content, if they're listening to this, you know, podcast, if they're looking at our presence online anywhere, all that's happening is that they're taking in information and they're being affected by it, and they should be allowed to make up their own damn mind.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's the point. You know, we're just sitting here talking about factory workers that are living in a place where it's a lot harder to just be in a position to freely make up your own mind. Yeah. You know, so, you know, I agree. Like, I want everybody to agree with us. I just don't feel like it's my responsibility to actually try and change their mind. I'd rather just walk the walk, and then if they agree with us, they agree with us. And if they don't, you know, there's a lot of people that do. And, you know, I'm going to focus on them, you know, and those are the people that give us product feedback and tell us what's important about the products and about what we do as a business. And they're the ones that actually support it. So those that disagree, like, okay, cool. Like, we'll listen to that. There's been plenty of good ideas or changes that have come because, you know, we heard something that we just hadn't thought about from somebody that was thinking critically about what we do. Yeah. That's awesome. But it's also nice to hear, you know, people say, yeah, we may come from point A for a reason to accomplish a thing, and then somebody comes back and says, wow, that got my attention, but this is why I'm really into it. And it just kind of blows your mind. Like, wow, I never thought about it that way. Yeah.
Let's shift gears here for a second.
Okay.
So a lot of people have been buying these Shemaghs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it actually makes me super happy to see.
Yeah, we lit them up and they're selling.
Like, they're going to be gone quick.
Yeah.
On their current pace, hopefully they'll be gone by the end of next week.
Yeah.
But are they going to make it for Christmas?
Maybe. We have made no promises of that. We splattered it all over the website. Like, the plan is to ship late December, just because I got this going in the middle of October thinking I had all sorts of lead time and we were going to drop this awesome product for a Christmas bomb and everything else. And once the shipping stuff lined up and stateside logistics and pick and pack backups in the warehouse and the whole thing, the promise is we're going to get these to you in later December. There's a chance they could start shipping by like the 14th. There's a chance. The last few legs of everything have to go perfectly. So I really hope so. I want them to. But
yeah, I really want these things under the tree, but I hope that, you know, if somebody did buy them and they're watching this podcast because they bought them, we sent it to them on an email.
Yeah.
They can share that with whomever they bought them for and say, hey, these things are coming. They're worth the wait.
These are special. These were the last ones made prior to the Taliban taking over the country. We missed getting them out of the country by days due to an active insurgency that succeeded. Our factory owner secured the product, kept it in his factory, untouched, in great condition, you know, completely had our back, stored all this stuff, and absolutely jumped to and stepped right to it. He got paid for these things 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And then spent 2 weeks running around Kabul for us to try and like get all this paperwork stuff done.
There was even a debacle where we tried to get them out via another route and then stuff got kind of messy.
Yeah, we were looking at we were looking at was there a possibility that we could move them easily into Pakistan through a broker and then ship out of Pakistan to the States. But at the time, just from a paperwork standpoint, it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
We looked at it really hard, but it wasn't possible. Basically, we'd had to do some shady shit to make that work, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, it's always dicey when you're trying to create a long-term business.
It's just, yeah.
Well, Andy, dude, I appreciate all the time you're spending this morning, because I know we got to get jamming on holiday stuff. And thanks for talking us through the product, where it came from, how it was made, the struggles it's gone through, and how the whole team has gotten it pushed forward to you guys. I know the Afghans are happy about it.
Yeah, they really are. And I just hope folks really, if they listen to this and they just realize, like I said, that there's always been a story behind everything that we sell. But these actual physical products were getting loomed, cut and sewn, and packaged during the fall of an actual country.
Well, one of the most historic falls of a nation.
Yeah, stored through the transition. And the people that we work with over there are still committed enough to trying to make this work going forward that they've, made it happen and got them to us. So, we hope to be able to light the production back up and have the full supply chain work. But the first step is proving, one, that there's demand, and then two, proving out the logistics. So, getting these ones shipped, getting the remainder of the stuff shipped. This was the test batch. There's another one that'll come in behind it later in early 2023. And then we'll go from there.
Right on. Andy, thanks, man.
Yeah, man.